that brings us to the approval of the agenda.
Madam Chair, I have two items on the agenda, one addition and one switch. Would like to rotate items 12 and 13, put the external audit report before the Finance Committee report, and add the following item to the agenda. Conduct of Board Member Dennis Rape to be added at where it please the chair.
Okay, I will recommend that we put that at number 17 after closed session decisions. Any other agenda items? Okay,
Hearing none, Madam Chair, I make a motion that the agenda as amended be adopted.
I second.
okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And we will now have the John H. Crowder Service Award. And if board members will walk around.
Each month, we recognize a high school student with the John H. Crowder Service Award. This award is a living tribute to the late John H. Crowder, who spent more than 30 years serving the children of Union County. In order to receive this award, the student must be academically successful, establish a history of community service in more than one area or with more than one organization. Tonight, we award the John H. Crowder Service Award to a very, very special student from Central Academy of Technology and Arts. Will Ryan David please come forward? Ryan is a pre-engineering in the Engineering Academy and has earned an A in every class he has taken at CATA, an A in every class. He is currently ranked in the top 5% of his senior class. I'm not finished. Ryan has served more than 500 hours as the search and rescue training leader at the National Emergency Services Academy. As the training leader, he instructs his trainees on how to be an effective member of a search and rescue team for a missing person or a downed aircraft. In addition to volunteering for the Hurricane Matthew disaster relief, where he provides items to families in need, Ryan also managed flight lines during the Monroe Executive Airport Air Show, ultimately allowing performers to stay focused and ensuring the safety of attendees. Additionally, Ryan also volunteered for Trips for Kids, where he rode mountain bikes with children who otherwise would not be able to. Ryan's service to his community is beyond compare. And today, the Board of Education is very proud to recognize Ryan David as the December recipient of the John H. Crowder Service Award.
Good evening. The Union County Public Schools Employee of the Month Award recognizes employees in non-teacher, non-certified positions. It was created to honor those who have exemplary work and performance, those who promote positive morale, or possibly those who demonstrate initiatives and creativity that improve the operating efficiency of the department or district. Individuals can be nominated based on their performance, their customer service, or an individual incident that merits commendation. Our December recipient is Robin Smith, Media Assistant at Parkwood High. Parkwood High Principal Carol Alley will now come forward to introduce our recipient.
Let me introduce Ms. Robin Smith, please. Robin Smith is not only extremely efficient and creative, but she works hard every day to promote literacy, the Media Center, and its resources. Robin is extremely generous with her time and always goes above and beyond what is required of her. For example, during the past few years, Robin has purchased several hundred Beanie Babies for the Beta Club students to take to our elementary schools as part of the Beta Buddies reading program. She also purchases supplies and gifts for our seniors to make them feel special, holds book contests, and purchases gift cards as prizes for students. She laminates teachers' materials so they can focus on instructional tasks. She makes programs for special events and much, much more. From making creative displays in the Media Center that promote literacy to purchasing gift cards for staff members who are veterans to providing special treats to students who work in the Media Center, Robin supports so many people and initiatives in our school. She does so much around Parkwood High and never expects any acknowledgement for it. Robin is truly an incredible and wonderful Union County Public School employee. I will now read the Employee of the Month proclamation from the Board of Education and Dr. Houlihan. Whereas the Union County Board of Education values the hard work of each employee within the district, whereas performance is an essential part of district operations, whereas Robin Smith exemplifies the performance, dedication, and teamwork essential to the success of the district and its students. Now, therefore, we, the Board of Education for Union County Public Schools, and Dr. Andrew G. Houlihan, Superintendent, hereby proclaim Ms. Robin Smith as the Employee of the Month for the month of December 2017.
Good evening, Board Chair Merrill, board members, and Dr. Houlihan. Tonight, we are honored to celebrate 5 schools that have been recognized by the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction for having 2016-2017 graduation rates that are among the highest in the entire state of North Carolina. Principals, as I call your school's name, we ask for you to come forward to be recognized and congratulated by our Board of Education members. First, Cuthbertson High School, which had a 98.3% graduation rate and is one of the 2 highest graduation rates statewide for students in its cohort size. Weddington High School, which had a 98.9% graduation rate and is one of the 2 highest graduation rates statewide for students in its cohort size. Central Academy of Technology and Arts, which had a 99.5% graduation rate. And it only gets better. 2 members of our 100% graduation club, Union County Early College and Marvin Ridge High School. Marvin Ridge High also had one of the 2 highest graduation rates statewide for students of its cohort size. Congratulations, principals, as well as to your staff members and for your parents and community for the outstanding job you and your staff have done in keeping students in school and on track for graduation. Dr. Houlihan, Board of Education, that concludes our recognitions for tonight.
Okay, that brings us to public comments, and we do have a couple signed up tonight. 30 minutes has been allotted for public comments. Community members wishing to speak during public comments should state their name, address, phone number prior to making other comments. The board will not hear in open session complaints about the performance of school personnel, personnel issues, confidential student issues. Individuals may address the board for a maximum of 3 minutes. Any person who is the appointed representative for a group may address the board for a maximum of 5 minutes. Should a community member wish to seek information or share items that may not be shared during public comments, our staff are available to address your concerns or provide information. Dr. Charles Faust, Chief School Performance Officer, is with us tonight. Dr. Chris Barnes, Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, and Dr. John Jones, Assistant Superintendent of Teaching and Learning, are here to assist if needed. And the first person we have signed up for tonight is Amy Anthony.
I'm aware that the Board of Education, I'm here to speak to you tonight regarding the pending student realignment. I'm aware that the Board of Education has chosen to use a process that incorporates a community-based committee to make a realignment recommendation. I truly believe that the board wanted to conduct this realignment fairly and with the best interest of the students in mind. However, I would be remiss if I didn't speak to you at this juncture to express our deep concern for the current state of their assignment. Our community, Highgate, or otherwise known as PB 149, has made every effort to participate in the process as spelled out by the board. We have attended almost all the meetings. We have also sent emails noting specific concerns with distance, traffic, safety, and utilization, all to no avail. I'm not even sure if the emails are being read since I've only received one acknowledgement of receipt. We are not permitted to contact our representatives, and neither of them have made an effort to express the concerns we've spelled out in the aforementioned emails. I'm also not sure if they're aware that we have been this will be our third elementary school in 5 years, the way the maps are currently laid out. As good as your intentions were for this plan of realignment, the result is producing a stressful experience for our communities. This has been dragging out for 6 months, and we have a few more months to go. We've had sleepless nights. We've missed our children's extracurricular activities. We've neglected other personal responsibilities, all in an effort for someone to listen to our logic. While attending the meetings, we've witnessed committee members not being provided adequate information for making such an impactful recommendation. For example, until last week, the committee was provided capacity numbers that represented the approved 2015 bond expansion and renovations. Per the information presented at the most recent joint County Commissioner Board of Education meeting, these capacity numbers changed significantly. Most expansion projects were removed from the plan. To my knowledge, no mention was made to this committee. We also cannot wrap our heads around how you can set criteria for the realignment without prioritizing them. In many cases, if you strive to meet one goal like utilization, you forego other criteria like transportation efficiency. The one criteria that seems to be placed at the very bottom at this point is minimizing student impact. Some of the maps have more students impacted than the 2014 realignment. It has become apparent to those observing the process that the committee is not in an optimal position to make such significant recommendations. It also just recently came to my attention that from multiple credible sources that members of the Community Realignment Committee have been actively propositioned with gifts and or money by county citizens in some neighborhoods potentially affected by the realignment. While we do not have evidence of bribes being accepted by any member of the committee, we feel these activities must be investigated in the spirit of open and unbiased process. During this process, we've witnessed Dr. McKibben and Mr. Cropper exaggerating information and selectively presenting information at meetings.
Thank you, Ms. Anthony. Your time is
Okay,
up.
thank you.
Now we will have Mike Black. Oh, no, it isn't. Okay.
Hi there. My name is Mike Black, and I'm at 185 Valley Glen Drive. My phone number is 704-321-9828. And I'm going to be speaking about the realignment as well, and pretty much echo the same things that Amy Anthony had said. But I'd actually like to go into the different criteria and discuss what is being laid out and how it's not being followed consistently for all planning blocks. Right now we have one of the criteria is the neighborhood schools. We have Steeplechase, Highgate, Retreat, and Weddington Weddington Estates, which are in PB 138 and 149. They are closer to Weddington Middle and High, which is closer, like it's 4 miles versus 6.5 miles to Marvin Ridge. We live in the town limits of Weddington. Doesn't make sense why our neighborhood, who lives in Weddington, participates in Weddington, is socially active in Weddington, should be moved to a school that's in the town limits of Marvin. Again, I mentioned the proximity, 4 miles versus 6.5 miles. It's even further for Highgate. They are even further away from Marvin. We have, I'm not sure how that can be more efficient in terms of busing. If you're traveling further away from your schools to get your kids to school, can't possibly be more efficient. You also have safety issues in terms of getting your kids to where they need to go. Can't possibly be safer if you have to go further distances. There's also upcoming traffic issues like construction on the extension of Ray Road. There's also upcoming traffic where Providence Road from Ray Road south will be widened. That'll create a traffic nightmare. That's our only way to get from our neighborhood down to the schools. Other than that, we're going to take back roads, which are not meant for high traffic, a large amount of cars. In addition to regarding the transportation had actually said that starting from the Union County line down to Cuthbertson is the hard, fast line in terms of we cannot cross, PBs should not cross to go from one school to the next. However, in option B, for elementary schools, multiple planning blocks cross over Providence Road to go over to Rayview, but yet we can't seem to get our planning blocks to cross over to go to Weddington Middle or High School. And then multiple times this is happening. Middle schools for high school, students in planning blocks on the west side of Providence Road cross over to get to Cuthbertson. So it's not like it's not possible. They're just not consistently applying it. Impact in terms of trying to impact as few kids as possible. Moving our planning blocks, we don't have a lot of kids. There's not a lot of us. We're small neighborhoods. It's just not a lot of us there.
Mr. Black, your time is up. Thank you.
Thanks.
We actually have a third item signed up for tonight. Ivan and Varen, if you could please come forward. Thank you. I will not attempt their
last
names.
names,
I'll let you
okay.
handle that. Thank you.
My name is Melissa Jackson. I believe my address is on there, 1521 Golden Ring Drive in Matthews. I'm with Academic Year in America, and I'm a local coordinator for exchange students. And we have this year 14 exchange students spread between 7 high schools in Union County. So first wanted to say thank you. We've had incredible support from principals to Dr. Jones, the guidance counselors. It's incredible to see the support of not only the program of cultural exchange, but also the individual students and the support they receive. Last year in December, I brought Pavlo Samsonenko from Ukraine, and he was able to share just a moment of his experience. And so the 2 young men I have this evening are both attending Union County schools and are also both grant students. So they are from the Flex and Yes program. They're in the top 2% of those. They have 30,000 applicants in order to receive the grant. So they are both here on a U.S. grant, community service, high involvement, high academic standing in order for them to stay in the program. So wanted you to meet them and just hear a moment of their story.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Varun Isaacs from the country of Pakistan, and I'm with the Kennedy Lugar Yes Exchange program. And I'm one of the exchange students who is studying as a senior in Parkwood High School. And I don't have anything written down, but I just wanted to say that I'm very thankful for all that you have done, that Union County has done for us, has allowed us to study in the county, and has allowed us so many opportunities to better ourselves as human beings and be part of the community. One of the things that I've noticed that you guys have such an incredible way of managing your schools, of allotting resources to your schools, and being able to create a sense of community and teamwork in everything that you do. That it has affected me on a personal level and has let me be a better person, a more disciplined person. And I just wanted to say thank you for all the great opportunities you are giving me and all the other exchange students in the area.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ivan Lutsuk. I am from Ukraine, and I am a participant of Flex program. And I'm attending Forest Hills High School as a junior. First of all, I wanted to give a thanks for U.S. Department of State, Union County Board of Education, and Forest Hills High School. I want to be clear with you and say that I really liked my exchange year and my host school, and I want to thank them again. And during my experience so far, I met teachers which really want to help me and to find a best way for each student to their personal growth. And in conclusion, I want to say that the main parts of American education that I have seen and which are the best from my opinion is a cooperation of modern technologies, the teacher work for personal improvement of each student, and student safety. Thanks for attention.
They really have been incredible students. They're both on the wrestling teams, which they have loved. And just that was a big thing, is exchange students love to be able to participate in sports when they're here. We have been going around and giving to the guidance counselors and principals a mug just as a way to show our appreciation. So we have one for you as well. So I'm going to have them give them out before we leave.
Okay, that brings us to academic program highlights. Linda Little and Janie Webb.
We're very proud of our foreign exchange students, our programming. Not only is that a great experience for our students, it's great for our schools to show that we certainly have students learning in global societies. So we're very proud of that. We're also proud of another program we wish to showcase tonight, which focuses upon creativity. In particular, we know that imparting knowledge and developing thinkers, that's our primary responsibilities. But when you add creativity and programming, we find some great initiatives that meet the needs of students. Tonight, one such program comes from our Exceptional Children's Program, and I am excited for you to see this program tonight. I'll ask for Ms. Janie Webb, Director of Exceptional Children, to come forward at this time.
Good evening, board members, Chairman Merrill, Dr. Houlihan, Ms. Morris. We're glad to be here tonight. I have with me Linda Little, who is our Union County Public Schools Exceptional Children's Transition Specialist, to help present this to you this evening. What we would like to introduce tonight and share with you is a program that we have collaborated with Carolina's Healthcare System Union and the International Project Search. This program was 2 years in the making, and last year became the inaugural year for that program. The program itself is a collaborative partnership, as you can see on the screen, with Carolina's Healthcare System Union, Union County Public Schools Exceptional Children's Program, the North Carolina Vocational Rehabilitation Services, and InReach, which is a community agency that provides job shadowing for our students. Project Search is actually a high school transition program targeting competitive employment for our transition to adulthood students. These students are typically within their last year of school with us, whether they have determined to graduate, within that fourth year. They're between 18 to 22 years of age, and it provides a 1-year internship at the Carolinas Healthcare System, which they have partnered with the county on many levels, and this is just one other level, where they have total immersion in the workplace facilities, and they teach and learn processes as well as have acquisition of employability and marketable work skills. With this, we need to remember that the students, the community, and businesses benefit from the participation in this program. A variety of internships assist the students in gaining increased independence and confidence and allows them to acquire competitive and marketable work skills. While CH Union hosts the internship program, they serve as a training site which allows access to other businesses for new diverse talent stream with skills that match the labor needs of our community. I'm going to ask Ms. Little now to come forward to talk a little bit more and provide information about our inaugural year last year in 2016-17 and provide a little information about what's occurring this year with our program.
Thank you. I am so excited to talk about Project Search. Janie always says that it's my baby, but I may have birthed it, but it takes a village to make it work. So it's taken a lot of collaborative partners to make this to be what it is. She spoke a lot about the history of the program. Okay, let's see how, I think I did that a little too fast. But what I will say, I do want to say this, even before our opening, those students actually go through an application process. Once they go through the application process, they actually go through interviewing and also skills building. So they actually present themselves to a panel that consists of our collaborative partners that you saw earlier. So our opening day was July 21st, and these are our first pioneers for our program. And I can tell you that we have excellent partnerships, especially with Carolina's Healthcare System. They have just really embraced this program. The students go through an internship. Well, for that 1 year, they each experience at least 3 different internships throughout departments of Carolina's Healthcare System, which is awesome, which they're exposed to different career clusters. Some of the successful outcomes that I want you to know about them is that the first year we had 6 interns, and of those 6, 3 of them were offered employment with Carolina's Healthcare System. So one of them is working now in environmental services. There's one in nursing administration, and also there's one working with in the food and beverage area, which is by Sedeco. The other interns are also into the job development stage or working. One of them is still in job development, which is in progress, which simply means that we're still working with our collaborative partners to gain them competitive employment. And that is the key word, competitive employment. They're not doing piecework, they're actually working in jobs in entry-level positions. Also, we have one intern that is currently employed with Windsor Windows and Doors. And that is also a great partnership that we have begun with them. And then another student is still participating with InReach, which is a provider of job development and also job coaching. So you can clap for a successful year for those outcomes. Thank you. I really wanted to just give a little small brief story, because I think this is really the main part of this program, is the fact that the students come in and they're learning more than just vocational skills. They're also learning those soft skills that employers are looking for, being able to greet, being to work on time, and they're learning all of that through this partnership. I wanted to talk a little bit about Joshua, because Joshua is one of our interns that whenever he came in, he had some challenges, and guess what? We all have challenges. He had some with communication, as far as like nonverbal and also verbal communication as well. This picture depicts the heart of this program. At the graduation ceremony, the department heads of Caroline's Healthcare Center were giving out celebrative awards. And when the individual, the lead in his area, came up and started talking, Joshua knew that they were talking about him. So he started smiling and he got right up. And the key to the heart of this is look at how they're touching. He's embracing him. That was also another challenge for him. And I will say that, you know, we give credit to everyone that has been a collaborative partner with this program, but I definitely wanted to recognize our teacher, Miss Amanda Ort, and also the job coach for our first year, Miss Wakari Hathaway. You can applaud for them too. Some other things that are important for you to know about the program is that even though these students are reporting to the hospital for that 1 year, we still try to keep them connected to their home schools. So in doing so, they get to still participate. And actually, we have an upcoming annual Transition to Adulthood Day at the hospital. That means that all of the students district-wide in our program will come to the hospital, and guess who will be presenting to them? All of our interns that are currently there. And then also they participate in their graduation ceremonies at their high school, and they have one with Project Search. So they get two. And then also our annual Special Olympics and also our transition fair, so that they're not disconnected to the school, but still connected with their peers as well. This is just some pictures of the graduation ceremony, which was held June 5th, 2017. As you can see, our partner, Caroline's Healthcare System, really laid out everything for them, which was awesome. They received a certificate of completion for the program. And then they also, all of the interns for that first year, they received a Pioneer Award from Caroline's Healthcare System. Just keep clapping, it's fine. It is an awesome program. And what I'd like you to know is that we are continuing to recruit for the program. We already have students that have started for this year. They started in July. And this year we actually have 8 interns, and we are recruiting now for interns for the next school year. It is a wonderful program, and it is definitely a benefit to our students and also to the community. And I just want to say thank you to the Board of Education, all of our school administrators, the teachers, everybody that has been involved in helping to bring this program into fruition. Thank you.
I just want to add very briefly, thank you, Ms. Little and Ms. Webb, and I commend, my hats are off to both of you for your leadership. And obviously want to say thank you to Carolina's Healthcare. I've seen this program in action, and if you've not been to see this, it is absolutely one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. To see these kids that are being highly prepared for a career of their choice it's just an amazing partnership. So I've asked Dr. Jones to let the board know when the upcoming graduation will be, or upcoming events for you to attend, or public events, and would encourage you all also to consider attending it. Your minds will be blown. It's a great partnership. So thank you.
And Ms. Lynn, Ms. Little, you say thank you to us. We want to say thank you for what you're doing. Thank you very much. Okay, that brings us to the consent agenda.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and we'll have the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, first of all, I hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving break. I want to welcome everyone back. We've got a couple more weeks to go, so everyone just please hang in there and try to have some fun. I want to give a big shout out to our teachers and principals and staff. Every day that passes, I'm absolutely amazed with the level of commitment, particularly on behalf of our teachers that they have for the school system and for our students. Today was an early release day, and I had the chance to follow on social media all of the great things happening in terms of training. And something kind of cool happened in two of our clusters that I've never seen before. In the Sun Valley cluster today, 3 schools came together, Shiloh Elementary, Indian Trail Elementary, and Sun Valley, to have a collaborative staff meeting across the cluster around a common set of training that will impact all teachers and all students in those schools as they prepare kids for middle school. And it's all focused around literacy and empowered classrooms. It was absolutely amazing. I had a principal say this is the first time in a decade that schools from across the same cluster are coming together. The same thing also happened today in the Cuthbertson cluster with Newtown Elementary in Kensington. And I just reflected a little bit and said to our team this afternoon, this is a great best practice that we should see across all clusters. So moving forward, I want to really encourage, we've got a principals meeting on Thursday. We're going to talk about this. It was absolutely outstanding to see the levels of commitment and learning on behalf of our adults. So I just want to say thank you. You may have recalled at last month's board meeting, we announced the fact that this week is Computer Science Education Week across the nation. And we explained that our goal is to have a week-long worth of computer science education as opposed to just one kind of isolated hour of code. And I'm very pleased so far with what's happening in UCPS. Students, teachers, parents, grandparents, they're all just immersed in learning around coding, computer science, skills needed for future jobs. Today I was at Sardis Elementary School, and they had a STEAM, science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics assembly for all of their kids. And they used it as a fundraiser, and the assistant principal and the principal, it was all around the evolution of the string. And I didn't know this, but apparently silly string was a mistake. It was never, when it was invented, it was never invented to be silly string. I learned that today at the STEAM assembly. And at the end, the principal and assistant principal allowed the students to come up on the stage, and all of them got to silly string the AP and the principal. It was really cool. Anyway, I'm looking forward to visiting more schools this week, but absolutely amazing what's happening. I want to give a brief update on our teacher and school leader incentive grant. Board members, you've received a detailed report from Dr. Jones last Friday, I believe. I'd like to share a couple of highlights about year 1 implementation. Principals and district staff have received an orientation about this grant. We're also moving forward with hiring of mandated positions regarding the grant management. We're working with our evaluation team, and I believe either this week or next, we have staff that will be attending Department of Education training. This really first semester is all about planning for the second semester, and we're really excited about this work. And again, if you have detailed questions, we'll be happy to answer those. I also want to give a quick transportation update. As you know, with the recent news in the area regarding buses that have unfortunately caught on fire, I wanted to let our public know that all of our Thomas-built Freightliner buses with the CAT 3126 engines were all re-inspected in October and checked for loose or frayed wiring, as you may have seen in the media. We want to ensure that student safety is absolutely the #1 priority. And I asked our team, and they followed through. And so thank you to Marlon Watson and Mark Strickland for your due diligence. We have to make sure these buses are in great shape. We also have 8.5 driver vacancies and 2 mechanic vacancies. So if there's anyone out there that's interested, we've got positions. And we currently have 11,305 account holders for Here Comes the Bus app. And we are tracking buses for 14,118 students. So right before the Thanksgiving break, I had the chance to present information about our strategic plan and our accountability results with the Union County Chamber of Commerce. Big thank you to Pat Kale and the Chamber and her board for being very supportive and being very receptive to our information, and very proud partners with us. We've had several teams that made it to the football playoffs, and while we didn't go all the way to the state championship, we were really close. I want to commend Sun Valley, Weddington, and Porter Ridge teams, your players, coaches, and parents for a great season and a job well done. And finally, I mentioned this, do want to say happy holidays to our entire community. We are, again, nearly through the halfway point in the school year. It's a very special time of the year, so I want to thank our teachers, our students, our parents, and our school leaders for all of your hard work. I hope everyone has a wonderful winter break, and we look forward to seeing you back in 2018. That concludes my remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Houlihan. That brings us to the external audit report. Mr. Covington.
Good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, Superintendent, and board members. Tonight, I bring before you the results of our 2017 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. I have with me Mr. Adam Sapiric. He's from our audit firm, Anderson, Smith & White, and he will walk you through the statements.
Good evening. You should have been presented in your packet a comprehensive annual financial report, as well as a 3-page letter addressed to the Board of Education from Anderson Smith White. First of all, the 3-page letter as the governing board is to let you know that the audit went according to plan, and anything that wouldn't have fit in the context of an audit report or compliance report, we would have noted in this letter to you. If there were any deficiencies in conducting the audit in the planning stages, any troubles with management as far as retrieving information, anything like that, again, outside of the context of financial reporting and compliance reporting, we would have noted in that letter. And there was none of those issues in conducting the audit this year. The audit went according to plan, and the financial statements have been completed and submitted to the local government commission, and we're waiting their approval. So again, that's what the 3-page letter is about. You should also have the, again, comprehensive annual financial report. Encompassed in this report is the actual audit report, and I'm just going to go over a couple of pages from our audit report, as well as some statistical data that just provides 10 years worth of information from ADM, major employers within the county, property values, information like that, statistical information for a 10-year period and some graphs. And that's the components of the what's called the comprehensive annual financial report. So again, in this report is our audit report. And on page 1 of the audit report, not the I or the Roman numeral 1, but actual page 1, is what's called our opinion letter, the independent audit opinion letter. And at the bottom of that page is the opinion paragraph. And it states that basically, in our opinion, the financial statements presented here represent the financial condition and the results of operations for the school system for the year ended June 30, 2017. So this is what's considered a clean, unmodified opinion letter. The statements are made up of a little bit of discussion analysis, a couple of paragraph or pages of comparative data. The financial statements are a single year presentation financial statements. So anytime you want to have comparative data, you present that in the management's discussion analysis, or you prepare a CAFR and have that 10 years of statistical data. But the actual financial statements are just single year comparisons. So a lot of that MD&A is just discussing some changes between current year and prior year, some of the things that occurred during the year that would cause the conditions to change for the unit. But the actual statements begin on page 10. And this is the statement of net position. This is the combined statement of all of the funds, as well as all of the assets of the school district and all of the liabilities, including school buildings, unpaid compensated absences up to 30 days, the pension liability. When you add all of those other assets and liabilities to the funds, the actual funds, the school system really manages their finances on a funding level. It's about what money are we going to get this year from the various sources, state sources, federal sources, local sources. And so those funds are really what are used to manage the finances of the school system. And once a school is constructed, the depreciation of that school really has very little effect on the management decisions, the funding decisions of a school system, but are still relevant to financial data. And so when you look at the net position of the school system, the grand total of all your assets minus all your liabilities is $564 million. That means if Union County Schools was a public entity, you'd be worth $564 million. A lot of that is in the form of buildings, and a lot of those liabilities are in the form of, again, compensated absences, a pension liability that you'll never have to pay, but it's still recorded on your books when you're looking at net position. So exhibits 1 and 2 provide that information, again, combining all your funds, combining all these assets and the changes therein into what's called net position. And so those, again, give you an overall value of the company, an overall change in value, but they really don't provide much information as far as how did we do in the current year? How did our funds do? Did we add to fund balance, use fund balance? And so when we're looking at more relevant data, we really look at exhibits 3 and 4 for your governmental funds. So again, I'm pointing out a couple of major pages. If you had to pare these financial statements down into a few major pages, it'd be exhibits 3, 4, and 7 and 8. And then again, our opinion letters that are found at the beginning of the report and then also at the beginning of the compliance section. So exhibit 3 is a balance sheet for all of your governmental funds. Across the way, you've got your general fund, state public school fund, federal grants, other special revenue, capital outlay, and the individual schools. Those make up your major funds. The exhibit 3 general fund column, most important column, this is where most of your fund balance is held. While most of your funding comes from the state, you don't carry fund balance from the state. Those funds are use it or lose it. So you don't have actual fund balance. There's a very small balance sheet that is just made up of installments for summer pay. So your balance sheet for your biggest funding source is really very small. So when you're looking at a balance sheet, the main item to note is that general fund column, the first column. So your fund balance for the general fund as of June 30, 2017 is $6,980,000, of which nearly $1.9 million is available for appropriation. That means that while you have $6.9 million of fund balance, you cannot spend any more than $1.9 million in future budgets. You have various levels of restriction of that fund balance. In the 1930s, when these state laws were written to prevent local governments and school districts from spending money they don't have, they leveled these fund balance restrictions according to how you can spend these funds. So you first have restricted fund balance in the form of non-spendable. You have receivables, or you might have inventory. This is not cash. So in order to prevent you, again, from spending money you don't have, you're not allowed to budget for money that has not come in the door yet. So this year, your receivables make up $54,000. This is very low compared to previous years. But you also have $1.2 million of encumbrances. And these are monies that you have planned on spending, budgeted to spend, issued the purchase orders to spend, but yet haven't received the goods. They're almost like payables, but yet not, you have not received any benefit. So you have encumbered some of your budget. You have obligated the school system to spend these funds in future budgets, but again, it reduces your ability to budget that fund balance because you have to have that budget, that fund balance on hand to pay for these encumbrances that are out there outstanding. So that those encumbrances plus the receivables make up that first line of restricted fund balance of $1,272,000. After that, you have a lower tiered level of restriction, which is called assigned fund balance. And this is just the assignment or the intention to spend funds a certain way. You've assigned fund balance to 3 different sections here: literacy expenditures, technology expenditures, and training expenditures. So these, again, are a third level of restriction, less restrictive than actual restriction, actually third-party restriction, basically just assignments and intentions to spend these money in these ways. You subtract those out and you're left with your $1.9 million of available fund balance. In previous years, you've had stabilization by state statute, these where you have approved expenditures to be, or fund balance to be expended in future years. You issue a budget resolution at the beginning of the year. And if your budget is balanced using current fund balance, you actually restrict or assign that fund balance again to future budgets, to next year's budget. You have $0 of assigned fund balance for next year's budget. So your next year's budget resolution is really balanced after you subtract out these designations and encumbrances. So again, that's a line that you don't see this year that you would have seen in previous years. Any questions about anything in the fund balance?
Oh, not fund balance.
Or anything on this page at all?
Not on that page.
Oh, okay. Well, all right. Okay. Well, I can, if there's, yeah, I can go over anything.
In the MD&A, it said that our net position was down $8.8 million for government activities,
Yep.
$4.4 million of which was due to increased pension expense. Can you explain that?
So GASB, in their infinite wisdom of accounting, has decided that basically what I think of more of as almost like the Detroit effect. You've got these pensions out there, these liabilities, governmental liabilities, that if the governmental unit, whether it be a state, city, or local board of education, were to start failing, these pension liabilities would have to be paid by somebody. These are obligations for retired individuals that have worked there 20, 30 years and are due their retirement benefits. That pension is funded by current installments, current retirement payments, as well as an asset, a bundle of assets, investments to the tune of billions of dollars for all governmental wide, all school boards statewide pay into this plan. And so actuaries do a calculation of what is our future benefit payments minus how much money do we have in our investment account. And they come up with what's called a net pension liability. That liability swings by billions of dollars every year. And Union County schools, while a big school system, you only represent about 1.5% of these billions of dollars, but it ends up still being a very large number. So anytime pension liability goes up, you're going to see increases in pension expense. The stock market's been doing great. The pension takes years to calculate by actuaries what the value is of those assets and what the future will hold. So right now, the pension liability is really higher than it's been in the previous 2 years, but that's because there's a delay in the valuation. Next year, you'll see probably a decrease in pension liability, which will create negative expense, which will add to net position. By the time the record stock market gets factored into the pension liability, you might have a net pension asset. That means that the investments are worth more than the future payments that the state thinks you're going to have for all pension holders. So that change in pension liability drives either pension expense or let's call it pension revenue or negative expense. And so that's one of the items that really masks that, you know, when you're looking at how did we do on our fund balance versus how did we do on our net position, that conversion has items like non-cash expenditures, like depreciation and like pension expense that might turn what looks like a very good year into a bad year when you're comparing fund balance to net position.
Did the GASB change, or is that just the normal fluctuation of the pension?
The GASB
expense?
issued
GASB 68, right?
GASB 68. That's a new standard that
Yes,
said
okay.
you have to start recording this liability actually on your books.
So new for this fiscal year?
No, it was new. This is the third year of implementation.
Okay.
3 years ago, we did a prior period adjustment for millions of dollars to put this liability on your books like it had always been there. And for the last 3 years, we just tracked the change in that liability. And again, that liability is calculated by actuaries, audited by the state auditors, and pushed down in the form of a workbook that applies. They do calculations of the present value of everybody that's retired from here and part of the Union County school system. They calculate your percentage of that total liability.
Thank you very much.
Yep. So again, Exhibit 3, the balance sheet, that general fund has the majority of your fund balance. There's also fund balance in the other special revenue fund. This fund holds some of your other state and federal grants that don't run through the state and federal grant funds. This fund balance number, by virtue of being in the other special revenue fund, is considered assigned fund balance if it's not already restricted by third parties or restricted by state statute for the fact that there are receivables outstanding within that fund. So $7.9 million of fund balance in the other special revenue fund, of which $4.1 million is assigned for special revenues. Again, by virtue of being in a fund that's called the special revenue fund, it's assigned fund balance. And then $954,000 of capital outlay fund balance. Exhibit 4 represents an income statement for these same funds. Again, a column for each fund. Important numbers to point out here at the bottom of that first column. You actually added $470,000 to fund balance this year. So any year you can add $500,000 to fund balance is a good year. We're seeing statewide heavy uses of fund balance. There's been increases in teacher pay over the last 2 years that's really affected the fund balance at the local levels. The state funding hasn't come through to pay for all those raises. And so anytime your school system is heavily funded with local funds to pay for schools, for teachers, and to pay for non-certified personnel, anytime the salary code or rates change statewide, there's the potential for a drain on fund balance. So again, anytime you can add $500,000 to fund balance in these conditions is a good year. And again, that gets masked when you look at the net position going down $8 million. So really, to look at how well you did, I look at these exhibits 3 and 4. All right. You also added $883,000 to fund balance in the other special revenue fund and $334,000 in the capital outlay fund. Any questions about fund balance or these governmental funds? All right. After that, Exhibit 5 shows you some of the items that convert the change in fund balance to the change in net position. So you go from a $1.4 million positive to an $8.7 million negative. These are the components of that change. You also have some schedules here of budget versus actual. This is where you would see if you had any budget violations, which you didn't have. And finally, again, some of the most important pages, Exhibits 7 and 8, page 19 and 20 of the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. These are your business type funds, your proprietary funds. So you have your governmental funds, but you also have 2 funds, the School Food Service Fund and the After School Program Fund, which are in business to make money. They sell a service. They are in business to make a profit. And so they have fund balance, but their fund balance is called net position because they have to record these assets and liabilities that the governmental funds don't have to record. You actually book the fixed assets on the child nutrition fund and then depreciate them over time. you actually record the pension liability for their little piece of the pension liability, which totals $2.8 million for the school food service fund. That liability is actually on the school food service fund balance in their net position. So their net position includes all these components, these non-cash components, these non-cash assets and liabilities, and their net position is $7 million. When we look at how well a child nutrition fund is doing, all the regulations, all the federal requirements really look at cash. You're supposed to operate your school food service fund between 1 and 3 months operating cash. If you have less than 1 month, you're not allowed to charge them indirect cost for the fact that you pay their light bill, you pay for a HR department and a finance department that they don't have to pay for. So if they have less than 1 month operating cash, you cannot charge indirect cost. If you have more than 3 months operating cash, they actually have to develop a spend down plan. How are we going to lower our cash on hand? What equipment are we going to replace? What change in indirect cost are we going to make to come down below that 3 months? So your cash on hand, it's very close to your net position, but it totals $6.6 million. And it's been hovering for years right around that 3 months, staying just under that 3 month threshold, so that to maintain that 3 months, the amount of indirect costs you charge them really has to be analyzed and projected and see to determine, are we going to exceed 3 months operating cash in the current year? So that you manage that 1 to 3 month gap through indirect cost calculations and indirect costs that you actually end up charging. So Exhibit 8, the income statement for these funds. So net position, $7 million. It went up $69,000 from the previous year. And then the after school program, they lost $113,000 for the year, and their fund balance is at $1.2 million. The indirect cost charged to those two funds this year were $800,000 for the school food service fund and $500,000 for the after school care program. So one of them essentially broke even, made $69,000. And while the school food or the child after school program lost $113,000, they were able to pay $500,000 in indirect cost, basically for their portion of the light and the use of the facilities to run that program. So again, that's a very positive situation to be able to run a program like an after school program like that and be able to pay back some of those expenses that they obviously cost to run them. So. Any questions about those two exhibits?
Yeah, I have one. So in the after school program, was there anything evident as to why the loss? So are we not collecting proceeds, or did we improperly set rates? Was there anything?
No, in fact, when you look at the history of that program, the revenues and expenses are very consistent year to year. Again, the program lost $113,000 while paying $500,000 of indirect cost and paying $95,000 to the individual schools for profit distributions. So they were able to pay all that money and still just only lose $113,000. We don't see hardly any after-school care programs that are able to fund some sort of indirect cost payment back to the governmental funds. Most of the tuition in those programs goes to pay the teacher salaries, pay for supplies, pay for whatever snacks. There is very little room in every other district we see to actually fund some indirect costs, funding some of that. Again, the benefit of having an HR department, of having a finance department that oversees all these funds. So again, $113,000 loss in this program is not a negative when you look at them paying almost $600,000 of their profits to the governmental funds and the $95,000 to the individual schools that actually house these programs.
If you took out basically we were able to allocate some overhead to that program. If you took that out, that program will be profitable to the tune of what, half a million?
That's right. Yeah, $450,000. Yep. So they actually generate a $450,000 profit and then distribute that profit partially to the schools for housing these programs, and then again the overhead allocation to the governmental funds.
I have a question. The profit, I'm confused about paying out profit to make us, what does the schools do with that profit?
That goes into their principal funds, which is, again, an individual school fund. It's on that Exhibit 3. And so it gets mixed with the yearbook fees, the fees collected for damaged books, whatever fees get paid into those principal funds, athletic ticket sales, that all makes up the activity in that individual school fund. And so they generate $12 million of revenue, $12.4 million of expenditures, and that $95,000 ends up becoming part of that. So they're able to use that for whatever is necessary. And again, there's cost to the school for running those programs, whether it be janitorial services or whatever. So it's a profit distribution because, again, to run that program in their school, it again, it does cost money. It does take up time, resources of the principal or whatnot. So those $95,000 actually just go into the principal funds, and the principal uses that to pay for whatever expenses they want to out of those funds. All right. So after those basic statements, you have about 30 pages of footnotes that give more information, detailed information about what makes up receivables and payables, roll forwards of the fixed assets, roll forwards of your compensated absences up to 30 days per person, roll forward of the pension liability. There's about 6 or 7 pages telling you how the pension liability is calculated. Again, just all of your accounting principles are laid out in those 30 pages of footnotes or so. And then on page 45 of the CAFR starts, again, some schedules that present the same information that are on exhibits 3, 4, 7, and 8, but this time a little bit more detailed in the budget versus actual, and actually gives us some breakdown of some of these funding sources. So you can see on page 45 that for your county funding, your general funds, collects $95.5 million, 94.5 of it is your county allocation. And then you got $800,000 of fines and forfeitures and $100,000 of ABC revenues. And again, some more budget versus actual on those expenditures. There's also the same thing for the capital outlay fund. Again, the same information on exhibits 3 and 4, but just broken down into a little bit more detail.
Is the ABC and fines and forfeitures, that's an ongoing process?
It's an ongoing process that fluctuates depending on seizures and fines and tickets in the county, and then ABC revenues, depending on their profitability.
What is the balance on that collected funds that we hadn't spent?
Those funds, those are non-restricted funds. They go in and they become part of the general fund balance, the general fund expenditures. They're really used for any general operation. So they get mixed in with that county funding. And again, down to that fund balance number of $6.9 million that we talked about.
And that's an ongoing fund balance.
That's an ongoing fund balance, yep. And that fund balance is not separated between what is the county appropriation and what is fines and forfeitures. It's all considered general fund, county money, county available for appropriating in future budgets, minus the various restriction levels.
It's a place that the board can go to for money, and it's not restricted.
The $6.9 million of fund balance is restricted in the form of some of it is encumbered. Some of it is assigned for certain projects like the technology, like training, the literacy program. So not all of that $6.9 million is available for appropriating. In fact, only $1.9 million of it is left for appropriations.
Did the assigned funds go through the proper committees?
The assignment of fund balance is an informal required assignment. The technology assignment has been on there for years. It's been on the budget resolution for at least the last 2 years. And then the current year assignments should have been presented to the committees by finance officer.
What if they weren't?
Again, they're part of the budget resolution, which is adopted by the board. I can't speak to what has been presented to you from management.
Just for everyone's information, as part of the finance report next, we had an in-depth discussion about fund balance for the fines, forfeitures, and alcohol tax collections. Perhaps Dennis can help us with that when we get to the next session.
Okay. All right. So after again, more detailed schedules, capital outlay, the school food service fund is also presented again, budget versus actual. And then you reach the statistical section, which is, again, data from, most of it comes from the county CAFR. Some of it comes from your information like ADM, salary ranges for the last 10 years. Again, just 10 years of comparative data that you can see really the growth of the school system when you look back over the last 10 years, and even of the county in general when you look at property tax values and information like that. But after those statistical schedules, page 86 starts the compliance section of the report. Again, this is part of our audit report, and it starts with 3 letters. 1 letter is on internal controls, 1 letter is on state compliance, and 1 letter is on federal compliance. And again, all 3 of these are clean, unmodified opinions and an internal control letter that includes no deficiencies of significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in internal controls that we think would hinder accurate financial reporting. So again, those 3 letters presented no question costs, no findings, no exceptions. We audit, we're required to audit 20% of your federal dollars in every major program at least once every 3 years, as well as 40% of your state dollars in the state public school fund, which makes up about 80% of your state dollars every year. So those programs are audited, again, for compliance, not just looking at what were the revenues and what were the expenses in those programs, but how are those funds spent in accordance with the grants that issue those federal and state programs. So again, these 3 letters present to you clean, unmodified opinions that Union County Schools complied with the federal and state requirements for the programs that we audited as major this year, and that being the Title I program and the Supporting Effective Instruction program for the federal programs, and the State Public School Fund for the state programs. And then after that is your schedule of federal and state awards. Your total federal assistance, $23.5 million, and total state assistance, $225 million. Are there any questions on any of this? Again, to note, in summary, these are, again, all clean opinions. No significant uses of fund balance, actually additions to fund balance. So again, anytime you can do that in today's environment is a successful year. All right. Well, thank you for your time. If you have any questions in the future, my number is at the bottom of each of those letters.
Thank you. It's very good to hear that we have a clean report and with no material weaknesses. We appreciate that. Thank you.
I would like to publicly thank Adam and his team for the excellent work they've done in preparing our financial report. And we look forward to a successful year next year. Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to the Finance Committee report. Mr. Sides.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The Finance Committee met on December 1st. And as I mentioned just a few minutes ago, we discussed the fund balance in the special fund of fines and forfeitures and alcohol tax. And as you know, we receive funding directly from the county. We receive it federal government and the state government. And then when you get a ticket and fines and forfeitures, and when people go down to the ABC store, we get a cut of that action. So we currently, and Dennis, you keep me on track here, currently have a spendable balance of $5.7 million in this fund, which cannot be spent on capital items. It has to be an operational expense.
One-time expense.
One-time expense. And so the committee feels we'd like to present to the full board to ask the Finance Committee to come up with some guidelines and or means for maintaining the proper balance in this fund, because at times it's fluctuated as high as $11 million and on down. So perhaps we realize there's an opportunity to have a discussion first in the Finance Committee area as far as what we should maintain as a floor. And then moving forward, staff has presented several items for a potential use of the funding above and beyond a minimum balance. And those items would be subject to discussion on the appropriate committees, and then would, of course, flow back to the board for final approval. So we are.
So would it go through finance first for the guidelines and then out
Yes.
to the committees?
Yes.
After
We want to set, I'm open to whatever discussion on this, but I think it's important that we have established some kind of guideline for a minimum balance to maintain in that fund. Didn't you just say the fund, a little fluctuation, about $850,000 a year?
Yes, that's what's
so
earned in those two funds.
I think it's that we set whatever percentage makes sense, guidelines, what have you, what recommendation from staff for a minimum balance in that fund. And then, like you said, the appropriate committees would decide. There was an item for libraries that could go through curriculum, computer technology, or whatever needs would go through SPIT. And that those committees will make a decision on how the actual money above and beyond the minimum balance are spent. So that was part of the discussion. Dennis, is there anything you want to add about this fund and this balance? How this?
No, sir, you covered it
Oh,
very
okay.
well.
Are we going to schedule a finance committee meeting then?
That's
Okay,
the
sorry.
next thing. I just want to commend the finance staff because Dennis was able to paint a very clear picture that in the past, this fund has been, it was spread around, so it was hard to get a handle on the full depths of what we had available. Is that a fair assessment?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So it's not like somebody cooked the books. It's just that it wasn't in a clear picture as Dennis has made for us as to what we have actually available for our use. And I want to thank the finance staff. The next item is budget calendar. You have a handout. If you can believe it, it's time already to start thinking about next year's fiscal year budget. And as a committee, we decided the best date would be the fourth Tuesday of the month, 8 a.m. in the morning, unless a special meeting was necessary. And we've handed out a hard sheet of the proposed budget development process, which we will need to approve. And I'll call your attention to the week of April 23rd. This is an optional joint session with the Board of County Commissioners, which could be omitted depending on the discussion between the two boards, and instead put as a formal presentation of the actual budget before the county commissioners, which again, the deadline would be May 15th, and we anticipating be ahead of schedule on that. So Does anyone have any questions for Dennis on the budget timeline as proposed?
Sir, but one correction, the Finance Committee meets the fourth Thursday of the month.
I thought we said Tuesday.
No, you
Did I
had
get that wrong? Was it Thursday?
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Okay, well, I'll have to modify those dates because those are Thursday dates.
Okay. All right.
Are there any other questions?
All right. How about if the board will take leave, that we will approve the budget? I'll make a motion to approve the budget timeline with the understanding the dates will fluctuate. Yeah, Tuesdays instead of listing as Thursdays. If that's the pleasure of the group, I'd like to go ahead and get this in because as you can see, staff's already going to starting work in December.
I'll second.
No, I'll offer the motion to accept the timeline with those changes going. If these dates are proposed as Thursday, they'd be a Tuesday instead. Oh, it was information on here. Okay. We do need to approve this though, don't we, Dennis? Because we
can approve it at the next board meeting.
Okay, in January, that'll be
Yes,
all right.
sir.
Okay, I'll let you, I'll withdraw motion and we'll get the corrected dates with the Tuesday meetings and we'll talk about it in January. Okay, Madam Chair, that's all I have. Again, I just want to thank the finance staff. I know they're going to start hitting the heavy lifting with the budget calendar. I look forward to working with them on that in the committee. So thank you. That's my report.
Thanks, sir.
Okay, we will now have the Facilities Committee update. Kathy Heintel.
Hello, everybody. We've been working on the bond, and we made a presentation to the joint at a joint meeting of the Board of County Commissioners and the Board of Education. Before that, we had reviewed our capacity study and our enrollment forecast. This was the first time we've done a capacity study, and we used an outside consultant. We have an enrollment forecast dated July 25th, 2017 that is drastically different than the one in December of 2015. And that's due to not including the impact of the charters in the 2015 enrollment forecast. The importance of the 2015 forecast is that the decisions made to put the bond, or the decision of the projects to put on the bond was made in June of 2016 using the 2015 enrollment forecast. So the board had a finite enrollment forecast that they used to make decisions on the bond. And that changed in July of 2017, both from a capacity standpoint in some of the schools and from an enrollment forecast. The 2015 enrollment forecast had a pretty steadily even, a little bit growing forecast for Union County Public Schools, staying in the 42,000 range. The new forecast in July of 2017 has a declining forecast, about 5,000 students over the 10-year forecast. There's 7 projects on the bond, one of which is a transportation facility, and I'm going to set that aside for right now. There's 6 schools on the bond. And when they were put on the bond, they were put on there because they needed additions for capacity issues or because of the enrollment forecast. So they were picked not because that they necessarily need to be fixed up, but because they needed an addition to deal with the capacity at the school. So the enrollment forecast was showing that they were growing, or at that point in time, they were over 100% of utilization, and they were going to grow from there. And we needed to put an addition on the school. Sun Valley High School is a little bit more involved than that, but it was also a capacity issue. Its capacity, it was going to be over capacity pretty quickly, and it showed it. The 2015 forecast showed it growing. So that's kind of where we are right now. So the other thing that we were dealing with is the estimates that we used in June of 2016 are on the low side right now. So not only were the estimates on the low side, but we've had issues with changes in the construction climate. It's driving up costs. We've already seen a pretty substantial increase in costs, about $20 a square foot, which when you're doing the type of additions and stuff to schools that we're doing is a pretty significant amount of money. We've had 2 hurricanes in the last 6 months, and that's driving up costs because a lot of contractors are in Texas and Florida. So those 2 things kind of affect the environment for construction. So I just kind of want to walk through what we talked really quickly, what we talked about with the county commissioners. The first thing on the first school that we talked about was Porter Ridge High School. We had originally talked about adding 4 classrooms and expanding the cafeteria. Porter Ridge area pretty much has a steady enrollment forecast, where the other clusters are trending down over the 10-year forecast. They're pretty steady throughout the forecast. So we're still recommending adding 2 to 4 classrooms and expanding the cafeteria a little bit for seating capacity. And that's kind of where we were with that. And that is a little bit over its original budget for Porter Ridge High School, again, because of the construction environment that we're in. Porter Ridge Middle School, the capacity when the board decided to put this on the bond was at 1,200. After the review by the third-party consultant, it is now 1,356. Again, it has a steady enrollment forecast. Its 20th day number was 1,310. They have about 21 MCRs in their backyard. We had originally said that we were going to add 15 classrooms to Porter Ridge Middle School because of the new enrollment forecast and the new capacity, or the revised correct capacity, whatever you want to say. We will only be adding 3 classrooms and an auxiliary gym. So that project goes down about $3.5 million from what we projected it would be, because it no longer needs the size of expansion that we originally thought it would need back in 2016. Western Union Elementary School, its capacity is 601, which is pretty close to what it was back in 2015. Back in 2015, its 20th day number was 710 students, and it was expected to grow from there. And it had a capacity of 601, and it's an older school and smaller classrooms, so that's crowded. In the following year, in September of 2016, their 20th day number was 600 students. It dropped over 100 students in 1 year, mostly due to the impact of the new charters. This year, it has 609 students at this 20th day numbers. So we looked, they were originally supposed to get 8 classrooms and an expanded cafeteria. But since they're coming in right around where where their capacity is, and it's trending down from there, it doesn't need an addition. So the reason that they were on the bond was to get an addition to deal with the capacity and the capacity of the cafeteria. Their current cafeteria is probably what, 5-7 years old, somewhere in that ballpark. So they're not getting the addition. We're looking at projects that we can do still for Western Union, and it's an ongoing dialogue. But the addition that was originally planned for capacity isn't needed. In fiscal year 17 and 18, they're due to get $2.3 million from our annual maintenance budget, or what we call the CIP. And in 15, 16, they got $1 million for CIP projects. And we've spent about $1.5 million so far of all those numbers. So we are taking care of the other type of needs at Western Union. They just don't need the addition that was supposed to go on the school. Monroe High School is the 4th project. They originally had a capacity of 1,000. Now they're at 1,272. Their 20-day numbers was 1,221. They have a very steady enrollment. They were expected to get 8 classrooms, and they are getting 6 classrooms, and we're fixing some circulation issues and the elevator there. So they're getting less classrooms, but their budget is still going to increase because dealing with the elevator and the circulation issues is what we're trying to deal with there. So that's the reason, but it still needs the addition because it continues to have steady enrollment along the 10-year forecast. Sun Valley High School originally had capacity of 1,460 students. After the third party came in, it was 1,502. They had 1,578 students at 20 day. So clearly they still need a little breathing room there. They were originally due to get 10 classrooms. In addition, the school was built in 1960. They were getting an auditorium renovation, bathrooms, the administrative area, and a larger cafeteria, athletic fields, HVAC, and things like that. Now they are getting 4 CTE classrooms. We're going to repurpose the administrative suite, the old administrative suite, and doing all the other things that I talked about. But their original budget was $24.4 million. It's gone up, just like all the construction costs, and now it's about $4 million more than what we had originally anticipated. Piedmont High School, is one that we put on there because their enrollment forecast was trending up in the 15 projections. They had capacity then of 1,330. Our third-party consultant said 1,600 is their capacity. They had 1,392 students at 20th day. They were supposed to, and they have declining projections now from there. They were originally supposed to get 4 classrooms. Clearly, they don't need 4 classrooms now. So we're going to instead renovate 6 science rooms that they have. The transportation, though that's all the schools. The transportation facility was put on the bond. Our current transportation facility is a little subpar. We needed more service bay, more maintenance space. We needed some training space, some office space, and all that. Based upon DPA studies, they think that we need 12 service bays. We currently only have 6, something like that. We have 292 active buses running routes every single day, 408 in our fleet, including activity and spares. Currently, a lot of our mechanics are in our bus lots. I'm sure as parents, we've all seen them there, lying on the concrete or the stones, fixing buses in 95-degree heat, in the rain, in the sleet, in the snow, and we need to keep mechanics around, and that's one of the reasons. So that's kind of the bond in a really quick thing. On our website, under the joint meeting on November 20th with the county commissioners, the PowerPoint with each of the slides with respect to these projects is on there. So I urge everyone to go take a look at that. We continue to work on the CIP projects from last year and this year, and we're moving forward with that. It's about to be intercession for the year-round schools, so we're going to get some stuff done over that time. The Citizens Advisory Committee with respect to the student realignment continues to meet and do their job. They narrowed the options to B and F in the West and F and F1 in the East. The next meeting is December 14th at Monroe High School at 6 p.m. It's a public input session similar to the one we had at CATA. The first part will be a presentation on kind of where we are, and then you'll be able to talk. The citizens will be able to talk to committee members and give some input. After that, there'll be another survey. We hope to get, the Board of Education hopes to get the recommendations from the Citizens Advisory Committee sometime in late January. And at that point, the board will take over the process from there once we've got a recommendation. And I think that's it. Sorry, talking fast. Anybody have any questions?
I have a couple. When did facilities start working on the adjustment of the bonds?
Facilities started working when the new enrollment forecast came in July, and then we waited for 20th and 40th day numbers to just double check it. Because McKibben's report wasn't final until he saw the 20th day numbers come in. So that's.
And I would also add that when we hired, our new assistant superintendent and director of facilities, one of the very first things they started looking at in their new positions was the bond. So, but
That's true. They've been good with input into that.
and they've been, walking the buildings with the principals. The principals have been in communication with them for many months on what they do or do not need. And the PAT team, Mark and Dave Burnett, have been at every one of those meetings, walking them through this process and understanding that we didn't need all those additions and renovations now that we have this new third-party enrollment at all of our schools, or capacities at all of our schools, that some of those additions were not needed, but there were things that were needed, like an auxiliary gym. A lot of the activities that are going on in those 21 classrooms at Porter Ridge Middle School would be better served in an auxiliary gym, and newer schools like Porter Ridge do have an auxiliary gym versus doing the 15 classrooms. So that's work that they've been doing for, several months since they joined UCPS.
Yeah, I'm not doubting the work of our staff or the facilities committee member, but I'm hearing a lot from the public that what we said in the bond is not what we're delivering. And that's where people have a lot of heartburn, because this is what they were promised, even though we said we can, as long as it goes to facilities, we understand that, but not necessarily the general public understands that we were promised 4 rooms at this school and X, Y, and Z at that school. It's just, it needs to be acknowledged that people were promised or people were told this is what it was going to, and that has been cut back drastically.
I agree completely. And I think that's why it was so important when this board approved to enter a contract with Dr. McKibben. And then we all agreed that we needed true numbers to know what the capacities were, because over the past 3 years and since 2014, there has been a lot of question about the capacities at the school. And so that's why it was imperative that when we entered this contract with Dr. McKibben, that Matthew Cropper, put boots on the ground, go into every school and come back to us and tell us what the true seating capacity was at these schools. And then to learn that the previous enrollment forecast did not even take into consideration charter schools. And then by the time you already have a bond on the books, more than 100 kids withdraw from one school. And that was completely out of our control also. But the new capacity numbers is a revelation.
And I think that we're trying to do, and I understand that criticism. The issue is whether or not these, like I started with, the reason these 6 projects were picked for schools was because they needed additions due to capacity and enrollment issues. And unfortunately, in a few of them, in fact, a lot of them, we've cut back because that same capacity and or enrollment forecast isn't the same as it used to be. And we are trying to work with the schools to come up with other projects that they may need that aren't already in our annual CIP stuff. Like, we've done some stuff at Piedmont in the past, and we've identified the fact that they have some science classrooms that date back to when the school was built that probably need to be renovated. And with Western Union, we don't want to put additions on that are going to be unutilized or underutilized at all. So we're trying to come up with some projects that aren't already part of the CIP to help deal with that.
When did the facilities committee decide that this was going to be the plan going forward? Our meeting with the county commissioners was on the 20th of November, I believe, and I found out about it that Thursday prior to. So when did the facilities committee decide this was the plan going forward?
The facilities committee has never decided this was the thing. It was the plan
Okay,
going
this is their
forward.
recommendation.
This is it. I don't even know formally we made a recommendation. Staff presented us with what their thoughts were based upon both the enrollment forecast and the capacity study, and said this is what we think needs to be done based upon the fact that you chose these schools because they needed additions because of capacity issues. And then we all kind of got together, presented it to the county to see their feedback before we made decisions about what to go forward with.
Okay, but yet again, the perception is because we presented it to the county commissioners that this is going to be the plan set in stone. That's a lot of the feedback that I'm getting too.
It was a working.
I understand that.
It was a working session with the county commissioners to get feedback. If we had voted on it, gone to the county commissioners, got feedback that they didn't like it, then we would have to go back to committee. So that's kind of where we are. Right. And like today on our consent agenda was the Sun Valley the redesign. Thank you. The redesign of Sun Valley High School. So it's.
I understand what Mrs. Helms is saying. It's very easy if you're looking out, have not been involved in the process, to see that some of these projects are not what was information given out before. It seems to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's almost a perfect storm. Now we have true third-party developed capacity numbers. We have what we feel are more accurate student population forecasts because we're taking into account more of the factors. We've had construction costs going up. So what we've tried to do is adjust to meet the needs with the amount of funds we have, and taking into account being good stewards of the taxpayers' money and not building additions that in 4 years or less down the road might be sitting empty, and we're still paying off the bonds for 20 years.
Not even 4 years in some cases. Right away, they would be sitting empty. So
I would just add that Dr. McKibben's data is typically correct within 0.5%. And he's telling us that our student population is declining, around 5,000 less students. So if we add 15 classrooms here, 8 classrooms there, 4 here, we're gonna have heating and cooling and utilities, and we're gonna have a lot of empty classrooms if we don't adjust the bond. So, and then, you know, construction costs going up. It is a perfect storm, because construction has gone up considerably. So, so thank goodness we weren't in the final design stage or the construction stage where we are in a position to say, okay, we're not going to do those classrooms. We're going to stay within budget. We're not, you know, we're going to do everything to stay within the $54 million bond and only do what we can afford to do and what's needed at those schools that the principals have absolutely been a part of that communication.
And Kathy, in these projects, is there a contingency built in that even if the cost should happen to exceed what our best hard estimates are now?
Mr. Burnett answered that at the joint meeting, that there's about a 10% contingency built into these projects.
I have one thing that Mr. Burnett and Mr. Strickland brought to the committee that really stuck in my mind. When they talked to the staff at Western Union, the things that they wanted were things that you couldn't really buy with bond money. And as Ms. Heintel said, we are spending $2 million down there out of our CIP budget to meet these needs.
And we are still talking to Western Union about what projects we're still going to do there out of the bond funds. But there is also CIP money going to that school as well.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but by the time the bond projects are finishing, we will have spent $3.3 or $3.4 million at Western Union by 2020 on capital improvement projects.
I think about three, I can't remember.
I believe it was 3.3,
I think
3.4.
you might be
So,
right.
so it is not that we aren't doing work there. We just don't need a 20 or 30-year bond loan to do it. We
In
can do
nine-
that in our capital
Right.
improvements on an annual basis.
In fiscal 19 and 20, it's about another 525. So if you go all the way back from 2015 forward, we're spending about $3.8 million.
I think the biggest thing that everyone needs to understand is that the capacities that we were told at these schools turned out not to be true. And so now we know, and now we can adjust and spend taxpayer money wisely. So that I think it's very fortunate that we entered into this and had a conversation with Dr. McKibben, which was not done in 2014. I'm very appreciative of his work, and Matthew Cropper, you know, actually walking these schools with the principals and telling us what the capacities are in all 53 schools. So I think we're in a very good position now to make solid decisions. Thank you, Mrs. Heintel. Now we will have a curriculum committee update.
Thank you. On November the 30th, we met with the curriculum committee here at the PDC, and we focused on 4 things. The improvement plans for 4 schools. And I might add that was down from 6 last year. So we are making progress. Dr. Harvey, Denny Ferguson helped me with the principal at East Union.
Mr. Terrence Sanders. And Miss Rita Webb, who is interim principal at Walter Bickett. And we had an excellent report. It probably lasted 2 hours from the principals. We are doing everything as a board, and our superintendent is, as they said, they're in the buildings all the time saying, what can we do to make them better? And
we have some exciting announcements that will be announced later about Walter Bickett somewhere down the road. But we are doing everything we can for these 4 low-performing schools to give them everything that they need. Update on preschool education. We'd had Mr. Sides had asked if we could find some more rooms for the children that were not getting met under pre-K. And what we found out was we had met all the pre-K students' needs, but NC Head Start had a waiting list, and we had the room for those children, but we didn't have transportation. And we're still rolling it around, but then we've got the pre-K class reduction size that we're going to wait on to see. And on classroom library update, to bring everybody up to speed, last year we bought 600 books for every classroom, K through 2. 600 books for these children to take home and read. And we have the money appropriated now for 3 through 5 for 30 elementary schools. And we had hoped to have what we needed to buy in for the curriculum committee, so we could bring that to the board tonight to vote on. And Madam Chair, we may need to have a special call session where we call in, because Dr. Jones is waiting on the book company to get that inventory. Once we have a curriculum meeting and approve it, we could roll it right over into a board. Our hope is to get it during the Christmas break and have it in place maybe mid-January. I believe the company will send it to the individual schools, so it's not a stress on staff to send it out. On the dual language immersion program, I got schooled down at Marvin Elementary about all the benefits of dual language. I saw kindergartners talking about a pumpkin being orange and round in Mandarin. I asked 5th graders a question in English, and they answered me in Mandarin. So I was totally impressed. And everything boils back to money. What really bothers me is there's 19 elementary schools that don't have any program for any language. And so my goal will be to work to find resources to do this. It may be an uphill battle, but this board has met every need that we have brought to them. And so I guess sometimes you got to step in something to know what to stay away from, and also to learn the benefits of it. And it was a full meeting, and that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ray. We have some closed session decisions that need to be taken care of.
I make a motion that we approve the bid for Shiloh Elementary School flooring as recommended by the Facilities Committee. No second, sorry, yes, no second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We have one more.
I'll make a motion to approve the personnel agenda addendum.
I second.
All those in favor? Thank you. Okay, and that brings us to number 17, a discussion of board member Dennis Rape's conduct.
Madam Chairman, it's my unfortunate duty to report that 3 of our staff members have made written statements that Mr. Rape made racially motivated and insensitive, unprofessional remarks during an impromptu meeting that occurred on the morning of November 9th. Mr. Rape attended a student appeal hearing that morning in central office. afterward entered into an already ongoing meeting with 3 of our staff members. While the employees allege the following comments by Mr. Rape during this meeting.
Could we take a second here? I want to excuse staff, and I would like to ask our outside counsel, Dean Shatley, to join us at the table with the board, and we'll excuse staff. And Dr. Houlihan. Donna, you're welcome to say if you want to take minutes or if, yep. Oh, no, no. From the table, from the. I'm sorry, just from the table. We need to have our counsel with us.
Mr. Shatley was at the chair's prerogative. Mr. Shatley was retained so that we have an outside impartial counsel to investigate the comments that have been reported during this impromptu meeting on the 9th of November. Mr. Rape made the statements to the effect of, "You don't get between a black man and his pork," referred to one of the staff members as resembling the comedian Dave Chappelle, referred to a Dave Chappelle skit commonly referred to as Milkman, and while they were passing around gum, I guess to try and ease the tension, Mr. Rape made the comment while waiting for some gum, "Puff, puff, pass," which I have been told alleges something from Mr. Chappelle's joke regarding drug use. Personally, I must say that these remarks are totally unacceptable, unprofessional, and racially insensitive remarks such as this cannot be tolerated. Accordingly, I would offer the following motion for consideration in a second by this board. I would officially and formally ask for Mr. Rape to voluntarily resign his position on this board. If he does not agree, he would be censured by this board for this unprofessional conduct. Madam Chair, I will so offer that motion and look for a second.
I'll second it.
Okay, now that we've had a motion and a second, we can have an open discussion. Any board members that have questions or comments, now is the time to do that.
I'll have a comment. Board members and constituents, I apologize if anything I have said was misconstrued in any fashion. I was elected to represent the children and people of the county. I will continue to do so and protect our children and families of Union County. I have been advised that I cannot present much because it involves staff. But please take note that I emphatically deny the things that they say I said. This was a complete misunderstanding, and trust me that I deeply care about bettering the education of our children. I am known for telling the truth. I am not lying now, and that's all I have to say.
Mr. Ray.
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to say that I'm deeply disappointed in you. As a board member, we have to hold ourselves to a higher standard. It goes without saying that we have to maintain professionalism, behaviors at all time. How can we go into classrooms and when they tell you that the orange pumpkin is orange, how can we look at those children and not understand the role that we have to be a role model? They deserve more. How can we participate in disciplinary hearings if we ourselves are not
behaving properly. And I want the community, and especially our staff, to know that I do not condone this behavior by anyone from the boardroom to the classroom. Our employees deserve respect, and they deserve to have a proper place and a safe environment. And as long as I'm here, you will have that. Mr. Rape, I hope that you'll take the time to reflect and own your behavior and apologize accordingly. You and I have had our differences, and we've settled them, and we've become friends, but I have to tell you that I do believe this because of things you have said to me. Now, what I will accept and what I take in and what I dismiss is me, but I understand the allegations. Now, out of respect, I won't go into it, but you know what you and I have talked about, and you know the things that you've said to me. So in addition, I hope that you'll strongly consider sensitivity training, because the Union County Board of Education is not this. Union County Public Schools is not this. Our children, our employees, our community, we deserve better. These are distractions. We have much work to do. We have bonds, we have realignment. We do not need this. So it's been a year. Being new is not an option. We've had several conversations. We've gone around and around. Being new is no longer an excuse.
And I will enter sensitivity training with the School Board Association. I have not contacted them yet, but I will do that.
I have to say, in a lot of ways, I agree with Leslie. I think that you owe the school system and the staff an apology, and not a half-hearted apology, but a real apology, because this isn't who we are. Leslie's right, Mrs. Boyd, excuse me, is right. This is not who we are and not who we aspire to be. And I know that you don't aspire to be this. And we have a lot of work to do, and we're taking away from that to deal with this type of situation. And that's about all I can say. You need to own it. You need to apologize for it. You need to learn from it. You need to go to whatever training is going to help you understand this. And then we need to.
Ms. Heintel, I agree with you. I truly apologize for anything that I said or was, I guess my biggest problem is I try to connect with everybody, and I realize that I offended some people, but the people who really know me, I have a lifetime of service. I have reached out. I help people all the time. I am sorry. I disagree with the charges, but due to the legal process, I can't really say nothing, but I will be a better person. I will take whatever advice board members give me privately or publicly, and I will work to be a better person. I realize it's a distraction. I'm embarrassed. I don't know, but I'm not going to give up. I'm not a quitter. I guess the biggest thing I can do is work to show the community my true heart. 2 years ago, I was advocating a medical academy for Monroe High School. It ended up at the middle school, and you were in there the day that you and Dr. Houlihan met, and we talked about that, and a smile went across his face. And so I'm not trying to talk about what I've done. I'm just trying to talk about
And I know you have a heart for the school system and for the schools and stuff. We just need you to apologize and understand that you've hurt some people, and we need to not have those kind of discussions anymore, and we need to move on from this. But that begins with owning it and apologizing for it.
Well,
I
I
know
do.
your heart's in the right place. I know that's why you're on the school board, but this is a distraction.
I realize that, and I apologize to every person of any race. I actually, some of them, I just need to stop talking.
Okay, so you're apologizing, but you're not admitting you said it. Because we're getting two different stories from you. You said you didn't say it, but you're apologizing for it.
Ms. Helms,
I can't imagine apologizing for something I didn't do.
I don't know how to address your comments. I did not.
And there was not just comments. Mr. Sides didn't continue, that he also made hand gestures and signals pointing eyes like I'm watching you to staff members as well. So it's, this is really disturbing. It's very upsetting as a board member, because I can understand how staff is feeling. And I can understand that they're worried about retaliation from you. That's a really big issue.
Well, I'm watching you, that goes back to a month ago to a policy meeting.
Okay.
Dennis, stop. Just admit to what you did and apologize. This is not acceptable. I'm so disappointed.
Well, I have
Our staff
apologized.
deserve closure. Our staff deserve an apology. Our students deserve an apology. You were elected to serve our students, our staff, our educators. No, just admit to doing it. Admit, apologize. Just do it.
And to work as a 9-member board as a team, and to not run solo doing investigations and putting yourself in a situation where it's your word against someone else's word. As the board chair, I will tell my board members, the last year has been difficult working with you. And you and I, and Mr. Sides, have had several conversations over the last 12 months encouraging you not to go in alone, to be too deep, to work with your other board members. And here we are a year later, and you've walked into another meeting again. And on the one hand, you're apologizing for offending, but then on the other side, you're saying that you didn't say these. And this has been a very difficult month for me to manage this. So I'm very thankful that the full board is here dealing with this tonight, because this past month has been excruciating. And, on one hand, to say that these 3 statements that I received beginning November 9th through the 13th, was 100% a lie. And so again, I'd like to know, is it a lie, or are you saying that you have something to ask forgiveness for? Are you admitting to this tonight after, for the last several weeks, I've been told it's all a lie?
What do you say? I apologize to the people. I apologize.
You say, yes, you said it, and you are sorry. That's what you say. You admit what you said, and then you apologize for it, and you learn from it. Because this, as Ms. Merrill said, this has not been the first instance that I've been involved in. Another instance that involved one of our principals and a meeting that you conducted and comments that made her very uncomfortable were relayed back. And it was a terrible distraction. And I felt certain that you learned from that experience. But evidently, I may suggest to the chair that you consider measures that Mr. Rape be banned from meeting with staff unless another board member is present, and to direct the superintendent to instruct our staff, including school administrations, not to accept phone calls from Mr. Rape until the chair feels that the time is appropriate, and to protect himself from himself.
It is at the board chair's discretion to appoint committees, appoint our non-members to committees. It's at my discretion to appoint the chair of each committee, liaisons, and I will be working with this board to make some changes while we wait for you to receive some training.
Will the training be on UCPS's dime? Because Mr. Shatley's here, who is our legal representation, and he is sitting up here on our dime. Mr. Shatley, how many hours approximately have you, up to tonight before our closed session meeting, how many hours have you approximately allocated to this issue?
Approximately 12.
Okay. And what is your billing rate approximately per hour?
Approximately 225.
Thank you.
So
I will pay for the sensitivity training.
I encourage you to do that very soon, because Mr. Sides and I have been having conversations with you now for 12 months on board member conduct. And I have done everything within my ability to work with you and mentor you and coach you. And so to have received 3 individual statements from very respected staff members was extremely disturbing to me. And I want to personally apologize on behalf of the board to our staff that this is absolutely unacceptable and is not reflective of our Board of Education or Union County Public Schools. And this is not a work environment that anyone should have to come to work and be afraid of an elected official.
Ms. Merrill, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to disagree with you. It does reflect upon us. It reflects upon us as a board entirely. This conduct is absolutely unacceptable. It would be one thing if this was a one-time incident, but like Ms. Boyd said, he's made comments to her, which she has dismissed, and you have been working with him for over a year after he's had board training. When's enough enough? When is enough enough?
I think we're all in agreement that collectively tonight we are saying enough is enough, and we're going to have some very important decisions to make, changes to make, while Mr. Rape gets the training that I think he agrees he needs, because at this point it's out of my hand. I've offered advice. I know other board members have offered advice over the year, and it just simply has not been taken. So I think tonight enough is enough.
Also, I'd like to add to our employees. I know that was for you all to come forward. That was really brave, because I know that board members are held to a higher regard. I've been here 3 years and everybody still calls me Ms. Boyd. And I know that that's a respect level, that's a deep level, and to do that and to thank you, because we all know that there were 3 that came forward, which means there's probably 12 that's not. And so I thank you, and always know my door, my phone is always open, because I will believe you.
I agree with you, Mrs. Boyd. And I just want to say I'm thankful that our staff did send me these statements. Because if I had found out about this any other way, to receive the statement was bad enough, but for someone to have not come forward or heard about it a month later, a year later, 6 months later, and more damage honestly could have been done if people had waited. So I just want to thank our staff. I think you're absolutely remarkable people to work with, and I am so honored to serve Union County Public Schools and to work with our staff. We have amazing employees at Union County Public Schools.
Mr. Shatley, another question. Where does this leave us liability-wise for employees, with the employees that brought these allegations forward and anything else?
Well, none of the employees, when I interviewed them and corroborated their statements, expressed wanting to do anything at that point in time. I mean, at that point in time. And to say anything too specific, I think would be speculative. But, you know, I mean, ultimately, so I want to talk a little hypothetical at this moment. You know, ultimately, when racist, insensitive, or sexist comments are made in the workplace, I mean, it does open an employer up to liability under Title VII, Civil Rights Act, for a hostile work environment. Also allows an employer to be subject to retaliation claim if they take some sort of action against the employee later on down the road as well. And again, I'm speaking hypothetically. I don't want to, you know, speak specifically to this, you know, to this situation in open session. It would be speculative on my part. But
I think it's very important that we address this so that we know where we stand as a board, and the public knows where we stand as a board, because these allegations were made.
Certainly.
I just wanted to second the comments of everyone, and Ms. Merrill. I have personally also reached out individually to the 3 staff members to give my personal apologies. We are blessed with many fine professionals in this school system that in no way deserve any type of unprofessional conduct, bullying, name calling, whatever you want to call it. And I'm sorry, sir, without an admission of guilt, I cannot accept your apology. I renew my call publicly for your resignation. If not, you be censured by this board.
I echo what Mr. Side said. I think suggesting or offering some type of training is a slap in the face. It does no justice for what you have done. Had one of our students participated in some type of bullying, they would have been suspended. I'm just saying.
And if you were an employee, you would have been fired.
Mr. Size, just so I'm clear on your motion, I don't know if anyone else has this question, but are you asking for a resignation or are you offering a censure?
Ma'am, I am requesting publicly a resignation effective immediately. Mr. Rape would resign his position. If he does not choose to do so, then he be censured by this body. So the choice is his.
I do not resign, Gary.
Then I will amend my motion that Mr. Rape be censured for racially insensitive comments, unprofessional conduct.
the original motion is effective enough, I think, for what you wanted to say, Mr. Sides. But before you vote, I do want to just point out a couple things. I mean, obviously, the procedure for a censure is very informal. It is basically a reprimand by the board of one of its members. The due process that's necessary is to give the board member, in this case, Mr. Rape, the opportunity to respond to those charges. Mr. Rape has had the opportunity to respond to these charges. I want to make sure he feels it's been adequate. Mr. Rape has also had the opportunity to respond briefly to a specific part of this charge that deals with a personnel matter that cannot be discussed in open session. He had the opportunity to discuss that in closed session, in which he did. You had the opportunity as board members to ask him questions as well. Unfortunately, since this involves staff members, part of it did have to take place in closed session. So I want to make sure that everybody is aware that Mr. Rape's had ample opportunity to provide his side of the story. And want to again ask Mr. Rape if there's anything else that he did want to address before the board takes a motion, to make sure that he feels he has said everything that he wants to say to address the allegations.
Yes, we will take a 5-minute break. Correct. Correct. Okay, do we have everyone back?
Mr. Rape is no longer present. He's left without permission.
Okay, so let me just state my extreme disappointment and our concern for our staff and everyone present here tonight. To say that I'm disappointed, it does not even seem extreme enough, but let me just say that I formally request that Mr. Rape resign. I think his resignation would warrant an appropriate decision on his behalf. As an elected official, we unfortunately are not in a position or able to remove an elected official from their seat. So as the board chair and with agreement of board members who have spoken to me at break, we would like to have his resignation considering what just happened. I think it was intentional. I'm going to publicly state that I perceive that to be an intentional act tonight. And as your board chair, Mr. Rape serves on the policy committee, the facilities committee, curriculum. He is also the chair of curriculum. And effective immediately, Mr. Rape has been removed from all committees and he will no longer be chair of anything. I will take a closer look at any liaisons that I have assigned him to, but I commit to staff and to this board and everyone in attendance tonight that Mr. Rape, under my purview as chair, will be stripped of every position he has. I will go as far as to say that it will be communicated to him after tonight that he does not have permission to go into central office. He will not have permission to visit any schools, talk to any principals, and I will make this board aware that even in the last week, he has been making phone calls to PTOs and principals, and knowing that all of this was underway. And so part of this needs to have a very clear understanding that he is not to have go into any schools, have any conversations with principals, staff, emails, text, going forward. And if he does not offer his resignation in the next 24 hours to me, he will not even be able to attend those committee meetings. And I will very patiently wait and see how we go forward if and when he receives training. And we will look at, there's a government, he mentioned the school board, but there's another elected officials government that we can look at some different opportunities. If he does not submit his resignation, we will take an active role in finding some training for him. But committee members of policy, facilities, and curriculum, please know that Mr. Rape will not be joining you anytime soon.
Madam Chair, I would also recommend that we direct our superintendent to inform all senior staff, all school administrators, that they are not to accept an appointment or a phone conversation or respond to any email or text from Mr. Rape unless they are accompanied by another board member.
I'm sorry, Mr. Rape, I don't agree with that. Mr. Sides, I can't agree to that. I don't want him having any communications regardless if another board member is with him, because
Okay.
I can't put another board member
To babysit.
in
Okay.
that situation. So I do not agree with that comment.
Well, then I will amend that to recommend that you direct the superintendent so that he is informing his staff and school administrators of this issue so that they do not unintentionally get involved in another issue with Mr. Rape by unknowingly accepting a phone call or meeting or email of some kind.
Madam Chair, can we also have his access turned off, his badge?
Well, let me say this. I don't accept that. I will accept nothing less than a resignation from Mr. Rape. What he did to begin all this was unacceptable. But what he did in his last comments were intentional. They were intentional. There's no doubt in my mind that he did not do that intentionally. I would encourage, there's 60 viewers currently watching this. I would encourage you to email Mr. Rape and tell him your feelings on it. Put it on social media if you want him to resign. I think Union County deserves better than this. I think our staff and our children deserve a better role model than somebody that will sit there and say these things and then lie about it. I think we deserve better. To say that he doesn't represent us, he sits on this dais, he represents us. Anything less than a resignation at this point is unacceptable to me. I'd like to also hear from every board member on this panel to know if you would only accept a resignation from Mr. Rape.
I echo Mrs. Helms.
Initially, I thought that the apology and sensitivity training would be acceptable, a remorseful apology, one personally made to the individuals that he offended. After today's actions and his departing comments, I would absolutely only accept a resignation.
I guess I agree, but we can't make him resign.
We can't make him resign.
And I agree.
But
And I think that they've renewed the call to ask him to resign. And at this point, we have a motion to censure on the table.
Right. But I want to know, I'm only accepting at this point a motion to resign because that is completely unacceptable.
So no motion to censure. But it's on the table.
Thank you. There's no need for you to necessarily have a motion asking him to resign. I mean, I think your public admonishment of it.
Everybody needs to state their opinion if they want him to resign.
Certainly.
Let me rephrase that. I want everyone to publicly state their opinion if they want Mr. Rape to resign. Resign, excuse me.
Reside or resign?
Resign, sorry.
I would like to ask for Mr. Rape's resignation after his actions today.
I would like to ask for Mr. Rape's resignation after what he did tonight and the past year and before that and so on and so on and so on.
I would like to again state my position that I would like for Mr. Rape to resign.
I also feel his immediate resignation is only appropriate. I would like to echo the earlier comments. I think frankly, the only chance of his resignation is if the public outcry is sufficient that he realizes truly the consequences of his actions. So I would recommend the public make their feelings on this issue known to him. Hopefully he will understand that his position on this board is no longer tenable and offer his resignation.
I think it would be in Mr. Rape's best interest to resign at this point.
I'll say it again. After actions this evening, I too believe that he needs to resign.
So I think we have complete consensus from all 8 board members. And so we have a motion and a second to censure him. And so Mrs. Hightail, do you have a comment? Okay, so all those in favor of a censure, please raise your hand.
Aye.
And Mr. Rape is considered an aye since he left without, correct?
That is correct. So the vote will be 9-0 to censure him. Thank you.
Have an announcement.
Okay, so we have board comments. I think we've had plenty tonight. Okay, so I'm checking it off.
Have a great holiday.
So any announcements?
Yes.
Announcements?
Remember, the Citizens Advisory Committee public input session is on the 14th of December, 6 p.m. Monroe High School. There's a Facilities Committee on Wednesday, the 13th at 8 a.m., followed by a Policy Committee at 9:30 a.m. On the same date at the PDC.
And
Everybody have a happy holiday.
the Strategic Planning, Information Technology, and Transportation Committee will meet December 15th at 7:30 a.m. at Central Office.
So would you say to be determined?
All right, I'm going to be working with staff to set up I've just been informed there's a rather quick need for a finance committee meeting, so stay tuned. I'll be reaching out.
Okay, I will gladly take a motion.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
And thank you, everyone, for being
Favor.
here tonight.
All those in favor, aye.
Aye.